continuing to add to my ongoing thesis, the next one for my second doctorate at the University of Metaphysical Sciences, which will be called a Doctor of Divinity. However, I'm going to base it on my degree in clinical hypnosis as well as some metaphysical work, and it's actually going to be called the Institute of Metaphysical Sciences, roughly. Got a little distracted. All right, so the Institute of Metaphysical Sciences, Institute of Metaphysical Hypnosis. The courses are at the University of Metaphysical Sciences. So I probably should actually get situated about where I'm going real quick. And then move from there. Okay, good. That's all right. So while I'm on my way, I have 9 minutes. So the basics are this, and I'm gonna put a video that's related, not completely to what I'm saying, but I mean, if I'm on the right track, then it is related. It's about EVOs, electron vacuum objects, the Subquantum Kinetic Society, and the work they're doing that is related to consciousness, which ultimately my studies in metaphysics are consciousness studies. It's one of the reasons why I went to the Hypnosis Motivation Institute. It was really about my interest in consciousness, although I wasn't really using that term at the time. I know it seems to be a common term, maybe if it's something that you study. But let me just quit with the jibber jabber here and get on with it. So the essence is this. So far, what I have been, the thread I've been pulling on is the understanding that most of modern physics are, the various disciplines are saying, to my understanding, the same thing, just using different terminology. And so, and my understanding is that all of this relates to consciousness. So I start off with the idea that all knowledge and all power is in all places at all times. That's not any different than the idea of omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. Omnipotence being all power, all powerful, omniscience being all knowing, and omnipresence being everywhere, right? So in the way I say it, all knowledge is omniscience, and all power, omnipotence, is in all places at all times, omnipresent. This relates to Wallace D. Wattles' metaphysics that he says comes from the monistic view or understanding of the universe, which is of Hindu origin, and that Hegel, Descartes, and Spinoza also spoke of. And he phrases it in the way that says, there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which in its original state permeates and penetrates the interspaces of the universe. Basically, a thought in this stuff tends to cause the things that you think about to be created. Now, there's a reason I'm speculating why that is. So, first, this thinking stuff is being talked about in modern physics. In quantum physics, it's spoken of the 0 point energy. And the 0 point energy is everywhere at all times. And various fluctuations, vibrations, and frequencies in this 0-point energy are what give rise to all of the fundamental particles of matter in the universe, which are the photons, electrons, quarks, and etc. So the same thing applies to quantum field theory, where there are fields. There's an electron field, a photon field, a quark field. This field is everywhere at all times, and various fluctuations and vibrations of frequency in these fields give rise to those fundamental particles. The same thing can be said of string theory, where there's a universal fundamental field, and in this universal fundamental field, the strings reside, or they're part of it, the fabric of this. It's everywhere all the time, and the various vibrations and fluctuations of frequencies in this field give rise to the fundamental particles, the photons, the electrons, quarks, etc. Once again, something similar but a little bit different is also from quantum loop gravity, in which space itself is quantized, meaning space comes in discrete parts. Basically, just like how molecules are made of different atoms, and atoms are made out of protons and electrons, then the space itself is made up of different parts that are all together. It appears to be seamless. One, sort of like how water looks like just one fluid substance, but it's made up of water molecules, H2O, which are themselves hydrogen, oxygen, right? And that more specifically talks about gravity, but it also talks about space itself, so everywhere all the time, various fluctuations, so on and so forth. It's all very similar. And then the one that I'm mostly focusing on has been from the work of Paul A. LaViolette and subquantum kinetics, which also says that there is a subquantum ether. It's everywhere all the time, and that etherons fluctuate, vibrate according to different frequencies, or a formula, what's known as model G, how they interact with each other. It's a reaction diffusion system, give rise to all the fundamental particles in the universe. And again, it's everywhere all the time. So, again, there's a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which in its original state permeates and penetrates the interspaces of the universe. As I say, all knowledge and all power is in all places at all times. As Flor Elizabeth Carrasco said, the way you want to live your life is mastered by your own self. So why is that? So now, some experiments that I did following the work of Dean Radin from the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which, by the way, I'm dropping names so people can see the credibility and the authority in this, but it was founded by Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who was the 6th man to walk on the moon, is one of their claims to fame at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. They were doing research with random number generators and having experienced meditators steer, that is, disrupt the randomness of the random number generators, essentially making them become less random, give less random results. I did this experiment by myself, and I got some interesting results. And the way that I got the results is what is informing more and more my understanding of how we use our thinking to create the things that we think about. And it also comes from my training at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, repetition and association. But essentially, here's the practice, because I got 1 minute and I want to wrap this up. Well, it'll probably take me 5, but I got 1 minute to get to my destination. And so, from the random number generator experiments, essentially what was happening, and I'll just give a quick overview. I know I did publish some stuff about it on my website, uniquequilibrium.com. I'll have to organize it. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'll do that later and put it all together in one blog post, so I can have access to it and all the videos that I made doing, because I did it live on camera. I recorded myself doing the experiment with the random number generator on screen and what I was doing. And here's essentially what happened. At first, there was randomness. It was positive, negative, positive, negative. It was just going back and forth. Then what I did was I wrote down a 1 on an index card, on one half of an index card, and a 0 on another half of the index card. And I cut it in half. I put the 0 to my left and the 1 to my right, so I could look at them. And still, it was still left, right. So then what I did, meaning it was still random, was positive, negative, positive, negative. Then what I did was I recorded my own voice saying 1, 1, 1, 1, and then also recorded my voice saying 0, 0, 0, 0, and put on headphones and played it back from another device that I had. And so I would just put it on loop, because you can put a track on your device on repeat. So that's what I did. I looped it, so that the way that I set the experiment up was I had this coin from Taiwan. It still had a heads and tails. I'm just giving those details. I'm not sure exactly why, but I do remember that it was a Taiwanese coin. It was worth like 50 Taiwan dollars or something like that. And so how I would set it up was I would determine ahead of time what I wanted to steer the random number generator to do. So I would flip the coin, and if it landed on tails, that represented 0. If it landed on heads, that represented 1. So if it landed on 0, then what I would do, I would select the 0 track on my device, and my voice saying 0, 0, 0, 0, and I would look at the piece of paper that I wrote with a permanent marker on the index card, and I would look at that, and then I would breathe in and breathe out while looking at the 0 and listening to my voice say 0. The interesting thing that happened when I started doing that, there was less randomness. I would get more of what I wanted. So if it was a 0, I would get more zeros. If it was a 1 that I was listening to and looking at, I would get more 1s. And the key part to keep in mind here, the best way to explain this is I like to use, just to keep it all sciencey, right, is Newton's first law of motion, which is inertia. And inertia basically says that if an object is at rest, something's sitting still, it's going to stay sitting still unless it's acted upon by an outside force. So unless something pushes it, for example, or explodes around it, like a rocket's fuel explodes from the bottom, gets directed to the nozzle and pushes it away, right? It's going to stay there unless it's acted upon by another force. Also, and if in gravity, in microgravity out in space where there's less friction and it's closer to a vacuum, if something is moving, like a comet or a rock, an asteroid, whatever, it's going to keep moving unless it's acted upon, or keep moving in that same velocity, right? Meaning that same direction and magnitude, unless it's acted upon by an outside force, like something bumps into it, right? So the analogy that I'm making here is that I was going in a certain direction. It was random. Positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. The outside force I added was listening to my voice, giving me either a 0 or 1, and looking at either the 0 or 1. And that's the outside force that steered, that changed the inertia of the randomness. And so when I started doing that, I noticed significant change. It wasn't as random anymore. There was a point where I was just getting strings of exactly what I wanted to get. Meaning when I say wanted, what I was focusing on, listening to, and looking at. So it changed. So at one point in time, there were 8 in a row of what I decided. Now, it wasn't just one. I wasn't just trying to get, I was doing, it was I don't know, a double random, because I was flipping the coin. I didn't know where the coin was going to get. I didn't care about that. But whatever it did land on, tails 0, heads 1, that's what I would focus on. And when I would do that, I would get positive, positive, positive. Sometimes 6 to 8 in a row, I would get the same result. And I was doing them 15 at a time. And I did 15 by 15 of these kind of trials. So how does this relate to a person wanting to create the results they desire in life? and how have I been using it, and how I'm using it more and more as I've become more familiar to understand why these things are happening. This is my thesis, right? This is what I'm speculating is happening, but I'm gathering more and more evidence to support this. And I also did an experiment years before I even knew about this that seems to corroborate this idea. I just didn't know before. Now I'm starting to put the pieces together. And so the practice is to record your own voice, focusing on the goals and the aims and what Earl Nightingale would call the worthy ideals in your life, because he says he defines success as a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So whatever that worthy ideal is, you record that. It doesn't have to be worthy. It doesn't have to be, I don't think it needs to be lofty. It could be just a goal about money. A lot of people need money. That was what the book The Science of Getting Rich was about. That's why he said, look, I'm not going to get into the metaphysics. If you want to study that, look at Descartes, Spinoza, look at the ancient Hindus, the Vedas, and that monastic view. If you want to look at the background of it, I'm just going to give those who need to get money right now. So this is a motivation for a lot of people. That's why I focus on that. And also in the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, they talked a lot about numbers, when you focus on numbers and values. And also they had a program, the Mental Bank program. So really, really great stuff. But the practice is to record yourself. And the more specific you are, right? Like there's something that a lot of people may be familiar with, but I'll repeat it, called SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound, right? And this also goes from the book Think and Grow Rich. Basically talks about the same exact thing, right? Someone just reorganized it maybe, or just came up with the same idea, but Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill talks about the same thing, that you have to be specific, has to be measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound, right? Basically, you can simplify that to this idea. Decide how much money you want and when you want it. You record yourself saying that over and over again. Like, for example, by January 1st, 2026, I will have earned a total of $100,000. And you can find different ways to phrase that and say that, and you put it on loop and repeat it over and over again, and listening to yourself saying it. Now, the one thing that I'm recommending to do, I have these various different binaural beats that I've created, and I've realized that actually in a lot of ways it doesn't matter which ones you actually use. Something that can get you focused and calm and relaxed and that feels good to you. It could even be your own jams, your own playlist, right? As long as you don't make it public, of course, because the whole copyright things, of course, that makes sense. But you can take binaural beats or anything like that and put it in the background and then put your voice on repeat saying anything. It doesn't matter if your goal is 30 seconds. You can repeat that over and over and over again 10 times and have 300 seconds, right, which is 5 minutes, and have 5 minutes of binaural beats in the background and listen to yourself over and over again while you sit and meditate. And you can do this for 5 minutes before you go to sleep, and then the first 5 minutes when you wake up. This is like the magic window in hypnosis. And when you're going to sleep, it's called hypnagogic or hypnagogic, as you're going to sleep. And then hypnopompic is when you're waking up, just to use the scientific terms of this. And so those are all the elements. So I'm going to wrap this up now, that consciousness seems to be at the essence of all existence in reality. It's eternal. All knowledge and all power is in all places at all times. This is why the way you want to live your life is mastered by your own self. The various different sciences are telling us this. A specific way that I found to do this is by listening to yourself repeatedly Speak of your worthy ideal, your goal, what is success to you. You can use binaural beats or something else that motivates you for sound in the background of it. Put it on repeat for up to 5 minutes. It could be more. And listen to that. The 30 minutes as you're going to sleep and the first 30 minutes when you wake up in the morning. And if you also want to add something to it, it's also good to write that down and look at it while you're listening to it. Maybe look at it first while you're listening. Take a few deep breaths and close your eyes. You can set it aside. In the morning when you wake up, you turn it on. And then as you open your eyes, you can look at it as well, right? And so there's a basic formula that I'm setting up for this. That's where we're going to start. And that's where I'm going to end here right now for that exercise. Again, all knowledge and all power is in all places at all times. The way you want to live your life is mastered by your own self. And I've just given you some steps on how to do that right now.